with me, your host, Sophia. And today I am doing a solo episode. So you have just me. And the reason I decided to do this solo episode is based on a few things that have happened with me recently. And I just wanted to bring them up because they're kind of part of the magic framework that I've spoken about before with the M and magic being mindset. So, and I do have my notes, so I don't forget it. All right. So today it's around a few things that took courage, mindset, and pivot, but they kind of all fall under the mindset part of it. So a lot of my friends, they know that I love to travel and that's kind of the stuff that I post. And they don't really know that I am a midlife coach for single women over 40 who most of the time don't have kids. So to get on a Facebook Live and actually start talking about that was scary as hell because I thought, okay, they're going to judge me. And probably they didn't care. I was judging me. 'Cause just worried about what other people were gonna think who've known me for a long time and don't know me in that realm. And so it did take a lot of courage for me to actually get on that first Facebook Live and start talking about it. So that, like I said, took courage on my part. But here's what I was talking about. So, yes, I was out and about and I wanted to talk about being out and about. But one of the things that I usually do, it's not that I don't show myself. I usually just do video and then post the video. But the reason for that is one of the things that I talk about is in slaying the good girl and good girl syndrome is perfectionism. So I would do video because I could do one take, 10 takes, 50 takes and then use the best one. But when you're live. And, whatever happens, happens in that moment. So I had to like really listen to what I tell my clients, right? So if we're going to slay the good girl and good girl syndrome, then you have to face the fact that it may not be perfect. And that's okay because you're doing it and you're getting it done, you're putting your message out there, whatever that might be. Maybe you're talking about your business or maybe you're just talking about where you are and you want to share that. So you're doing it on a Facebook Live. So I did that and I didn't die because, hey, here I am, right? And so that is something that I really want to encourage people to do. Is if there is something that you are afraid of, dip your pinky toe in the water and just try it. Because one of my coaches asked the question, if there was one thing that you were afraid to do, what would it be? And my one thing was do this Facebook Live. And I faced it, I did it, and I felt really good about myself after. And so subsequent Facebook Lives became way, way easier, right? So when you finally do the thing that scares you the first time, each subsequent time becomes easier, becomes less scary. And then you build that confidence that, yes, this is something that I can do. And no, I'm not going to die. I mean, unless you're doing a Facebook Live and it's something crazy. But you get where I'm coming from, right? You do the scary thing at least one time, then the next time, not as scary. I mean, even I have gone skydiving a few times, and the first time I thought I was cool as a cucumber. I got in the plane, we got up there, and the minute, because I was jumping tandem, and the minute the man said, okay, it's time for me to latch you on, I froze. I was like, oh my God. So I was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. So I got got in position. He strapped me in. And the one thing that I did to calm myself was as I'm leaning against him, I could feel his heart beating and I could feel his breath. And I just started to breathe with him. So it's like we were breathing as one person. And I calmed down and I was like, this is going to be great. I can do this. Yay. And when we got up, we got to the front of the plane. Well, not to the front of the plane, but to the area where you have to jump out of the plane. Again, I was terrified and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I standing here? And he's like, are you ready? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, we're going. And I was terrified. And I could just remember hearing the echo of my own voice in my head as I was screaming when we jumped out. But as we were going down, and then he checks the watch to make sure, it's not a watch, but it looks like a watch, to make sure we're at the right altitude, and he pulls the cord, the um, okay, the word has just lost me, but you know what I'm talking about. The parachute opens, and now I'm just floating through the sky. And I'm floating through clouds because it was one of those days. I'm floating by birds, and I wasn't scared anymore. I was just enjoying the moment. And a lot of times, fear and excitement feel exactly the same way. So as I'm doing this and I'm watching all the beauty around me, I got so incredibly excited that there was no fear. And subsequently, when I, went to skydive the next few times, I wasn't scared because number one, I knew what to expect. And number two, I'd already done it and I'd gained the confidence from having done that first dive. And in actuality, the next couple of times I jumped, I was like, wow, this is too short. And sometimes I think you when it comes to skydiving and things of that nature, you're always chasing the high of the first time because I don't think subsequent times are ever exactly the same. Plus, I jumped at different locations and from different heights, but another story for another day. But you get the idea, right? So the subsequent times that I did it, their fear had dissipated and I was feeling good and confident and just knew that I could do this and it would be okay. So the next thing that happened that just really made me want to do this is okay, sorry, that loud voice that lives in your head. It's really loud sometimes. And so a few days ago, because the weather where I am right now, you can get the full gamut of seasons within the week. Actually, sometimes within the day. It's insane. I'm not used to this. I'm still getting used to it, and it's just freaking insane. So a couple days ago, I was in class and actually still anyway, I'm still in class, but I'm on a break. So let me just do this right now while I have some time. But I've been in front of the computer all day long, but it was cold outside. It was like 50 something degrees. And when you look at the weather, it says 50, like let's say it said 54, feels like 44. And so there is that voice in my head screaming, don't leave the house. It's too cold. It's windy. It's crazy. Stay inside. And the other part of me that was more of a whisper was saying, you've been in front of the computer all day. You need to get up and move around. You need some fresh air because you were in front of the computer all day yesterday and just get out and do the thing. I was so ready to listen to the voice that said, stay in the house. But I got ready, sneakers, coat, got out there, froze my ass off. But I got my steps in. And that's what was important. But what I really had to think about there was how many times do we listen to the voice in our head? How often is the voice that is trying to protect us really sabotaging our progress toward whatever goal we're trying to meet? So, with me, health goal, goal for steps, that's what I'm trying to work toward, or not trying, but that is what I'm working toward. And that voice in my head was trying to protect me from freezing my ass off. But I knew that I wanted to meet the goal. So I listened to the whisper voice that said, go do it. Go hit your goal. Go do what you need to do. And so the question then became, how often do we listen to the louder voice, right? And you can even call her the mean girl voice, the voice that says, you're not good enough. You don't know enough. You're too much. Nobody cares. You get the idea. Those voices can be really, really, really loud in your head until nothing else can get through. And you start believing those voices like they're truth, you know? And they're not true. You are good enough. You came into the world good enough. And maybe along the way, there were things that happened or people said things and you created a story that you weren't good enough or you weren't worthy or whatever that thing is. Or maybe you were gregarious and people told you that you were too much or you really feel things and people said you're too sensitive. And those are the things that just stayed with you. That just, you created stories that it's like, well, if so and so said I'm too much, then maybe I really am. Or maybe there's a teacher, because I know I had a teacher when I was in high school who said, oh, you'll never be a good writer. And said, some other things that weren't kind. And I believed him until I went to college and I started turning in assignments and getting really great grades on me and recognizing that, yeah, I am a good writer. Now, am I a Pulitzer level writer? Maybe, but I haven't put that to the test. And maybe not, but that's okay. But what I needed to learn was, yes, I'm a good writer. And it didn't matter what he said because that was his bias, that was his subjective thought. That was not truth about me. And we really need to think about some of the things that have been said to us and really ask ourselves, is that truth about me? Or was that person's bias? Did somebody say something flippant that we internalized that maybe they were having a bad day? And what they said had nothing to do with you. So these are questions to start asking yourself and start looking at the areas of your life where you might be shrinking or holding back or not doing the thing that you want to do because you believed somebody when they said you couldn't do it. And I know there are a lot of people who, when somebody says you can't do something, they're like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And they go do the thing. And that's amazing. But then there's a lot of other people who somebody says you can't do the thing. And depending on what kind of authority that person had in their life and what your personality is, you believe them and you internalize that. And then that carries over. So maybe they said you couldn't do A, but now you believe you can't do A, B, C, D, E, and the list goes on because you're just not that. Or maybe even worse, maybe somebody said you're stupid. Something happened and somebody said you're stupid. How often have you made a mistake and you hear that same voice saying that you're stupid. And so then you go through life thinking that you're stupid. Just think about that for a moment. Now, luckily, I haven't ever had anybody in my life tell me that I'm stupid, but have I caught my internal voice calling me stupid when I've made a mistake? Thinking that because I've had some programming that mistakes are not okay. So you have to look at not only sometimes where things are coming from, but what is the result that they're creating. And not to say you have to go back into the past and lay a foundation and stay there. But sometimes it's good to know what the root cause of something is so you can dig up the root and start fresh. So it's like your grass, like a garden. If you just pull off the tops of the weeds, they grow right back. Because where I am, there's, I don't even know what kind of weed it is, but I pulled out a bunch of the weeds and clearly I did not get the root because within a week they were back in almost the same spot where I pulled them out. So sometimes you do need to get to the root cause of an issue so you can fix it, fix the root. And not to say that you as a person need fixing, but there may be beliefs and thoughts and conditioning that are in there that you need to dig it out by the root and then replace it with something that's going to serve you better, right? So it's almost like when you dig something out by the root and then you decide, okay, well, I'll plant a flower here or I'll make a vegetable garden here. And then you fertilize that and then you watch it grow and then it starts to produce what you want versus spending time paying attention to the thing that you don't want and watering the weed instead of digging it out. So that was the next thing. And the last thing, which is also mindset, is how well do you pivot when things don't go according to plan? Because that was a thing for me just recently. Again, this class I'm talking to you about, we had a substitute teacher and she has a different relationship with time than I do. So the first day she was subbing, she didn't show up on time, which that that alone could have set me off. But I was like, okay, it's all good. You know, we're gonna learn what we're gonna learn. And then the next day, she decided to change the schedule completely. And that in itself could have just been a shit show for me because, again, her relationship with time and mine are different. But what she actually did was mess with my sleep. And me and sleep were really good friends. We get along. I enjoy it. So if I take the time to get up before daylight so I can be on time for a class, then my expectation is that the person teaching the class will also be there and will adhere to the schedule. So that didn't happen. She chose to change up the schedule, do things later, et cetera, et cetera. And did I lose my shit? I could have, but I didn't because I said, I can either learn or I have an opportunity to do something else. So I chose to do something else. So in this free time that we had, I ended up I was juicing, I baked, I did a whole bunch of things that normally I wouldn't have had the time to do because I would have been in this class. So it was an opportunity for me. It was an opportunity for me to do things I needed to do. It was an opportunity for me to get grounded in other things that needed to happen in my life and allow them to occur versus stewing in the fact that things weren't going according to plan. And even like taking this in a different direction. I travel a lot and sometimes flights are delayed, right? And I have seen people in the airport, and I'm sure you've seen it on social media, where they are losing their shit because the flight is delayed. Now, is that something in your control? No. Now, chances are, is that something that the gate agent can control? No. So sometimes you just have to say, what's next? What can I do? So sometimes what you can do is wait patiently. Sometimes you can check online, but then you decide to get resourceful and see what you can do instead of freaking out. Now, of course, here's a good place for me to plug travel insurance. Because if you have it, it's a good deal. Not gonna that's it. That's another podcast for another day. But important. So and just recently a friend of mine, I was picking her up from the airport and she sends me a message, flight delayed. And so I think her flight was delayed like maybe 3 hours or something like that. But when I got her, she was the epitome of grace. And she just, she just went with it. It's like, okay, well, this happened. I'm here. You're here picking me up. It's all good. And sometimes when, if we look at situations as neutral, then the one thing we can control is how we react to them or how we respond to them, right? And that's a really important thing to be aware of. If all situations were neutral, how do you respond? That's in your best and highest interest. So again, food for thought and things that you can happily journal on. So that is it for today. But before I go, I do need to say, I don't know when you're going to be hearing this. Maybe you're listening right when it's posted, or maybe you'll hear it later. But I am opening up a few spots for new clients. So whenever you hear this, go ahead and reach out to me, um, either on Instagram, Facebook. You can DM me, or you can, send me an email, and we can talk about how I can best serve you and how we can co-create the life that you want so that you feel empowered and so that you wake up every single morning saying, I love my life, as opposed to saying, there's got to be more to life than this, right? And getting out of chaos and into clarity so you know what your next best steps are. Because we all know that you hit 40, 45, sometimes even 50, and you start to rethink your life and re-examine your dreams. If you can remember what they were, because dreams change. You change over time. So what you wanted 5, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you may not want today. And so getting that next best step, stepping out of clarity and stepping into a life of no, stepping out of clarity, stepping into clarity, stepping out of chaos, and getting into the fulfillment of the life that you really want. Sometimes you need help to get there. Sometimes you need somebody who's going to see into your blind spot. And sometimes you need somebody to help you tame the voices. So I would love to be that somebody for you. So I would love it if you would just reach out to me. We can have a conversation and see how I can best serve you. All right. Until the next time, talk soon.